As you guys are actually doing more and more trigonometry and trying to solve trig ratios and that type of stuff, one of the basic skills that kicks in a little bit is cross multiplying and dividing, which you guys have been doing for quite a while. That, of course, is like if 3 divided by 8 is equal to something you don't know divided by 24. And to solve for what you don't know, you multiply across. You multiply by 3 times 24. You divide by whatever's left, and that will give you what you're looking for. So, of course, 3 times 24, 72. 72 divided by 8 is 9. Some people just know this as just straight up cross multiplying. So 3 over 8 is equal to what you don't know divided by 24. And if you cross multiply these two and cross multiply those two, they should give you the same thing. So 3 times 24 has to give you the same thing as 8 times what you don't know, which of course will end up being 9 again. So this is something you guys have been doing for a while already. Now, what does this have to do with trig? Well, trig, here, let's get a little triangle here. Here's a trig right there, a nice little triangle. And let's say this is theta. Let's say that's phi. Let's say this is 4. Let's say that's 3. Doesn't matter. All right. Now, what does this have to do with solving stuff with trig identities and that type of stuff? Well, actually solving any trig identity, any part of a trig identity, it's all cross multiplying, dividing. Sometimes it's a little more hidden than other times. So suppose we have this triangle right here, and tan theta would be, if we're going to use theta right here, so the opposite would be 3, the adjacent would be 4. Tan theta is equal to 3 divided by 4. And it may not look like the cross multiplying stuff up above, but remember that tan theta, anything can be written over 1, and then we have a fraction equal to a fraction, just like the top stuff. So you can solve it by cross multiplying, dividing if you want to. Like, for example, if you didn't know this value right here, what if you didn't know the 3? Maybe if you knew the angle, you didn't know 3. Maybe this was 24 degrees. So this is 24 degrees, and you wanted to solve for the 3. So maybe it was tan 24 is equal to something you don't know divided by 4. Well, if you're not sure what to do, again, remember this is you can put that over 1. This is cross multiplying, dividing. So all you would do is do tan 24, find out what that number is, times it by this, divide it by 1, which really doesn't do anything, and then that will give you this. It's cross multiplying. Okay? The same idea applies if you want to do something else. Suppose we used the phi value instead. Maybe we used this angle right here. If that's 24 degrees in there, this angle here, of course, would be 66 degrees right there. Well, okay, so maybe tan of 66 degrees is equal to something you don't know. Oh, well, we did that one already. Let's switch it up a little bit. Maybe you do know what the opposite is. What the opposite for that one would be 4, obviously. 4 divided by something you don't know. Okay, same idea. Now remember again, this can be written as a fraction if it helps, like this. So to solve for what you don't know, you would just do the 4 times 1, which doesn't really do anything, divided by this will give you this. So it doesn't matter the trig ratio. It doesn't make any difference whatsoever. If it's written, if you write them as fractions and ratios, which really comes in especially if you're writing the formulas first, which what you should do, we do tan theta is equal to opposite divided by adjacent, and then solve for whatever you have. Maybe you have the opposite. In this case for theta, the opposite would be 3 again. 3 divided by the adjacent. Adjacent's what you're looking for. Tan theta is equal to this. Well, 3 times the invisible 1 divided by tan theta will give me the adjacent. So if it helps, make sure to try and write out the fractions, try and write things out, and then if you're not sure, that if you're looking for the top one, the bottom one, whatever it is, just think of cross multiplying. Set up the trig function as over 1 if it helps you visualize that, and then just think about cross multiplying, dividing when you solve it. And this will work for any of the trig ratios. It's just cross multiplying, dividing, or cross multiplying depending on how you want to look at it. It's all the same thing, doesn't make any difference. Okay, so let's look at a couple other scenarios just to see what's going on here and just practice a little bit. So here I got a question. I got the 20-degree angle up the top, 20 in the side, looking for that side. So this is going to be using tan theta. So I practice my ratio, tan theta is equal to opposite divided by adjacent. Okay, so what do I got? I'm looking for this here. That would be the opposite. So this is what I'm looking for. And my adjacent is 28. So this is what I am looking for. So I'm going to put in my value. So tan of 20 degrees is going to be equal to the opposite, which is what I'm looking for, divided by 28. Okay, so if I'm going to just try and solve for the opposite, I'm going to cross multiply. So if I cross multiply this, I would just do, find out what tan theta is, and if it helps, visualize this as being over 1. Take tan theta, get that value, whatever it is, times it by 28, divide it by the 1, which again doesn't do anything, and that'll give you the opposite. So I would do tan theta times 28 divided by 1. Just cross multiply them and divide, and you've got your opposite value. Okay, for this one over here, okay, tan theta is going to be opposite over adjacent. Okay, so I know tan of 40 degrees is equal to, let's see, my opposite is what I have this time. So my opposite is 8.6, and I'm looking for this, which would be my adjacent. So the adjacent is what I'm looking for in this one. So again, cross multiply to solve something like this. So, and if it helps, put this over 1. So I'm looking for this one right here. So I'll cross multiply. So 8.6, I'll times that by 1. And then divide that by the tan 40 value, and that should give me my adjacent. Okay, one of the biggest mistakes that people often make, especially when they're starting trig, and it never actually goes away. People consistently do it. They multiply the two values, they divide the two values when they should do the opposite. Well, sometimes just setting it up as a cross multiplying can really, really help. Okay, so for example, here in the first one up here, we did the tan theta. Remember, the 1 really doesn't do anything, okay? But tan theta times 28. So we found tan theta and we multiplied by 28. And then over here, we took the 8.6, we times by the 1, which again doesn't do anything. But for this one, we took the 8.6 at the bottom, we times by 1, and then we divided by tan 40. So in the top one, we multiplied these two values, and in the bottom one, we ended up dividing those two main values. And again, this is probably one of the number one mistakes people make, is multiply or divide when they should have been the opposite. And sometimes it really, really helps to set up as a cross multiply, put the little 1 if it helps, and it can really help to take care of any possible mistakes you might have, especially when you're first starting doing, whether it's the tan function or any of the 3 main trig functions. It can really help to keep you from making little simple multiplication division errors.